Welcome to our podcast today. Ask Aaron and Ask EJ. This is Coach Eric Johnson, the brand.
And this is Coach Aaron, the source. EJ, got a good topic today. Let's let the folks know what
Yes.
what are we talking about today? What's gonna
Our
bring
topic
it here?
today, Mr. Aaron, is physical development. When do you start? You know, that's the ultimate question. When do you start? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I have some initial thoughts about it. Then I'll let you kind of talk a little bit about it. But what we're really talking about here, people, is that you know I think a lot of parents and players are not sure when to get physical. I'll just say that word physical. And when do they start training? When is the best time to start training? Because no one really knows, at this point. And I see it on a regular basis with a lot of our athletes and athletes abroad in the country. I really do. You got players that are late developers or players that are developed already, but that's not really what we're talking about. What we're talking about is that there's this athleticism, this physicality that no matter how big or how small you are, it's there. There's a base there. And that's what we're really talking about to make sure that your athlete um, can compete at the level they like to compete at. And no matter what their size is, they're Aaron, as you know, they're really good athletes, they're really good players that aren't physical, and then it catches up to them. So that's what we're kind of talking about today.
It's a couple of I was trying to pull them up here, but a couple of I guess companion podcasts might be. We just did one on physicality. That may be something you guys should check out. Entitled, let me see if I can get it up, pull it up here. Lost Art of Physical Expression. I think
Right.
that's something you guys should take a listen to. That kind of is intertwined a little bit with what we're talking about. And then we've also got some other podcasts in the past. I think it was when to start training, just in general. Anyway, we've got a number of them, guys. So I would suggest you take a look. I'll also try and put some links on the site when we list it. But yeah, this whole thing about when to start training, or when do you start to develop that physicality, is kind of a fluid thing, and we've touched on it a little bit before. Initially my suggestion would always traditionally always be eighth grade, but now because of the change in the recruiting landscape, I've dropped it down to sixth grade. And that's only because of the mismatches we're seeing along the way once an athlete leaves high school and what they're facing. So
Right.
I'm a proponent of kind of not necessarily accelerating that, but trying to close that gap so that when that high school senior graduates, they're much closer to that 21, 22, or that year old that they're going to be competing against. So, at least you can't get equal to, but maybe you can get close that gap a little bit, and then
Yeah.
make you give yourself a little bit more opportunity and make yourself a little more competitive. It's a fluid thing again, like I said, and it's athlete specific, but I think what stops most parents is just because they don't know, they tend to fear.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of outdated information about training and athletes, especially young athletes, and it's not necessarily easy to find. Most of it is probably in the scientific journals than
Right.
just a regular old Google search that people like to use,
Right.
which to me is never the first place you want to go for information anyway. But my suggestion is always, again, look at your athlete, look at where they're at in the trajectory of where they need to be find a general population, have them assessed, find an elite or above average population, compare them to that, and yeah, there's no crystal ball, but you can at least come up with some probabilities
Mhm.
as to, you know, how far, if you're on track, if you're ahead, if you're behind. Uh,
Right.
so that's probably where I would start. But just as a general rule, I am finding more and more of my young athletes lack a degree of physicality, of coordination, of strength and balance, and raw athleticism, run, jump, throw,
Run, jump, throw.
um, than in the past. Now they're highly skilled in most cases,
Right.
but they're still lacking the overall athleticism that, will propel them, to the next level. You can only kick a soccer ball so many ways. You can only swing a bat so many ways. You can only shoot a ball so many ways. So, a lot of the separation becomes the athletic attributes, and those athletic attributes are based on, your physical attributes.
Right.
So that's where I would, start on this subject.
It's funny, Aaron. I walk in and out of your facility in between my teachings or working baseball players out, and I watch the athletes because you're not doing one sport, you're doing so many sports with different athletes and different backgrounds. And what I see is, and I look at examples. I saw one young lady in there that you've been working with the past 2 or 3 years. And the reason why I see her, I know what her face looks like because she's always in the gym. And I just look how she moves now, like in terms of how she moves as an athlete and how more physical she is than other athletes that are of her age, and she looks like a world class athlete. She's 14 years old. My goodness, she looks like like man, she's competitive. Like she's an athlete. It looks like an athlete. Looks like a decathlete.
Yeah,
If I could use that term, because
exactly.
there's some of the best athletes in the world are decathletes.
Yeah,
Run, jump, throw, everything. And she looks like a decathlete. She
yeah,
really does.
yeah.
And then I look at an example of a player, two players, and they're in our company. One that was been with you. They're in the same grade, by the way. But they started with you at the same time. They start with me at the same time. One trained with you, one didn't train with you. Both are exceptional athlete players. They're good players. They're both very good players. The difference in them right now is physicality. The athlete that was with you and trained with you for 2 years now is way more physical than the athlete that did not train with you. The athlete that's been training with you, their trajectory is going like that faster baseball wise versus the athlete that didn't train with you, who's a very good player, who's athletic and is one of my best players. His trajectory is going slower. It's going slower. And what I fear, and I tell parents this, what I fear is that this athlete that's moving slightly slower than this other athlete that's with you is the fact that the physicality is going to catch up to that athlete that's not training with you, and that the other athletes in his grade class are going to catch him, and they shouldn't because this guy has got exceptional athletic ability and he can do things, but he's not physical enough. So his run, jump, throw numbers are different than the athlete that's worked with you.
Right.
It's you can see it. You can see bat speed has increased from the athlete, how hard they hit the ball, how they throw the ball, and the physicality of them getting hit, like contact. That athlete is going to be a lot stronger than the athlete that hasn't trained. The athlete gets hit is going to get nicked up, banged up, beat up a little bit, and not going to be able to come back. Thus, stamina in a tournament or stamina in a 7 game series is greater from the athlete that you've been training with versus the athlete you have not been training. That athlete who's not getting training is going to tire out quickly. They may start off really fast, but somewhere in the third, fourth, fifth game, they're going to run out of gas. And the athlete that's been training, because of the base and the stamina and the strength and the development, that athlete's going to keep on, like, it's like you give them more energy, more games, more energy, and they just keep on going. So, parents out there, I tell you that that's really ultimately what's happening. You're seeing these young athletes training younger, and not in a bad way, but this run jump throw thing that you just threw out there blew my mind, Aaron, because that's what's really happening here is that um, that part of athleticism, which is in every sport, is not being worked on. That stuff's not being worked on. You know, and when you say one jump throw, you're that's agility, that's strength, that's all the stuff that you train athletes to do. And I tell all the people that are listening today, if I had an opportunity to do more of that training younger, I I probably would have been a lot better. Even though I played all the sports, I was run, jumping, and throwing and stuff. It wasn't structured.
Yeah,
It wasn't a plan, you know. But we have plans now that can help, can assist players faster and get
right.
them to be greater athletes faster. That's all I'm saying. Our training, Aaron, was, we got in the streets, ran, jumped our
Exactly.
bikes,
It was through play. Yeah.
played tennis, and we played all the sports, and we were doing all this stuff. We didn't know what, but we were in our sport, and probably we wouldn't have gotten there without doing all of those sports as you and I were growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll definitely I know the young lady you're talking about. I want to give her flowers. That's L.O. I won't say her last
Yes,
name, is not sure, but um
right,
L, yeah, she started with me in the sixth grade.
right.
She's as strong as, I won't even say your typical, probably your above typical high school male athlete.
Absolutely.
And it's just because she's done the work. I'm not going to say that, all of a sudden she's some kind of genetic freak or anything. No, she just has, for the past 3 years, 3.5 years, just been consistent and done the work. And we've been able to layer on everything we need to keep her healthy and strong and at the appropriate level. But because she's been so consistent with her training, she's as strong as any high school athlete right now. She does things that some of the guys can't do in the gym. So I know she
Mhm.
outpaces almost every girl, or is just as strong as any high school senior in any sport.
Right.
Um, and so that's a testament to her and her parents' dedication to getting her to where she needs to be. So she's not going to be wanting for that aspect of her training. So yeah, definitely shout out to Elle and the work that she's done. And unfortunately, those people are few and far between because again, some parents get frozen by the fear or not knowing and don't take the steps to maybe investigate and learn a little bit more about what is the appropriate type of training, volume, frequency, modalities that my kid should be doing at a certain age. There's always work to be done. And sometimes you have to search out what the appropriate work is and not just do a Google search or think
Right.
because athlete over here is weightlifting that your kid, your son or daughter has to lift weights. You know,
Right.
you got to meet them where they're at and have a plan and stick with that process for it to work. I have a lot of conversations like this now because, kids are coming younger and younger into performance training and we talk about having a change in mindset, understanding what training really is. Training is not practice. We talk about exertion. What's exertion? you know the type of pain or uncomfortableness that builds versus the pain that hurts.
Right.
So there's a lot of mental hurdles too that have to be navigated by the athlete and the parent when you want to undertake this. But the reality of sports is it has to be done if your child has dreams of playing collegiate ball.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I just, I keep on seeing these images of athletes in your gym and who've been with you. You mentioned Ellen. I saw her day before yesterday, and I said, my goodness, look at this athlete now and their trajectory. But
Yep.
I want to point out something. Like those athletes are with you all year. It's not like they just show up like for a 20 pack and go, I'm done for the year. Thanks for coming. Like during her time in her sport, or I see this other player that's trained with you that plays for us, he's working out with you. He may be 2 days a week with you during the season, or he gets in one, but he's consistent.
Yeah.
And because of the consistency of him showing up, or L or any athlete that shows up all the time, they're at game speed. I see the trajectory and the progression move faster. I see those athletes be less injured. I see those athletes be confident, which I think is lacking today in the younger athlete is the confidence in their ability because you said something just now, you know, training with pain, training where you're uncomfortable is a difference. And so when these athletes get in this uncomfortable environment, they know how it feels already because they've been training in an uncomfortable environment. They know how their body is and it's all right. They're like, it's all right. I'm uncomfortable, but I can deal with this.
Yeah.
And that leads to confidence. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
it's the truth. And I think if you're listening to us today, understand that it's all right to be uncomfortable in training because all that's going to do is prepare you in your sport. When it gets uncomfortable, you know how it feels and you know your body can handle it. A lot of athletes can't handle that uncomfortable environment is because they've never been exposed to it. And when they get into it, it's like, where do I go?
Yeah.
But athletes that train their body with physical, all these things we talk about, it seems they're more successful, regardless of their athletic ability.
Yeah.
See the
Yeah.
difference.
Mhm.
Athletic ability versus training, they help each other. And I think people don't understand that. It's like, oh, he's a great athlete. He's gonna be a great player. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
What if the athlete can't move? He's a good athlete, but he doesn't move as well as he should.
Right.
Uh, at the end of the day, your athleticism only takes you so far.
Yeah.
I mean, so or your ability to play that sport only takes you far. Um, so that's how I kind of view it. I think of that, and I think if athletes who are listening and parents are listening, understand it's never too early to start your athlete in a correct training program that can help their physicality of their body develop correctly.
Yeah. And I'm not deaf to, the situation parents have, are in nowadays with their kids. I mean, there's not enough, there's usually not enough time, not enough resources,
Right,
all those sorts of things. And so that's why I'm saying that you have to plan something that works for you. And that might mean 30 minutes 3 or 4 times a day at home doing some kind of homework program, but maybe something that is monitored and managed properly so that, you're not doing the same exercise routine for 60 days,
right,
or
exactly.
doing the workout from UCLA based on a 200-pound 22-year-old. So
Right,
you've got to, again, kind of sit down, see what the needs are at that point in time, see what you can do, and then have a frank conversation with the kid about, hey, okay, if this is what you want to do, this is what you need to do.
right.
and this is how we're going to get this done. So it's not about spending more money, but it is going to be about spending more time.
Mm,
And when you're talking about, um, physical development, it's like, you're still filling the glass if you're putting a drop in at a time. Yeah, you may not be pouring in like you'd like to, but sometimes in the year you're pouring more in, other times it's just a little trickle. But the
mm,
ideal is to keep filling that glass. These haphazard
mm.
starts and stops and kind of these quick fixes. Oh, we've got, 3 weeks, let's get some strength training. It doesn't help. It doesn't work. You lose it as soon as you gain it. Uh,
Absolutely. Yes.
and I think parents don't also understand that. So sometimes it may be best just to sit down and talk with a coach or a trainer and say, hey, what would strength training or physical development training look like for my athlete at this point? Now, based on our availability, our resources, the athlete's level of engagement, these parameters, what can we put together
Right.
and start there? That way you're starting at a point that's manageable versus saying, some guy said, oh, well, you need to come to the gym 3 days a week. What does that mean?
Right.
Um, so that's probably what would be my advice
Okay.
to parents out there. But don't fool yourself in thinking that, I've got 1,000 touches on the ball and I've got, 500 jump shots in and I've hit the ball off the tee. I've got 300 swings off the tee or 3,000 swings off the tee this week is going to be the only thing that gets you there.
Right. Right. It's funny, Aaron, and I had a parent tell me this 2 days ago. They said, you know what? The biggest mistake I made was like after the season, I just let it go for 8 weeks and I didn't train with Aaron. And, it's the biggest mistake I made because it hurt my son's development physically by just not doing anything for 10 weeks. And I said, I agree with you. The fundamentals look good, but the physicality part of it is not dynamic or explosive enough because he misses 10 weeks. And he said this to me, it's like starting over again, EJ.
Yeah, that's
And,
basically what happens. Yeah.
and I
And,
was
and,
like,
and and
yeah,
this is not a commercial for game speed.
it's not.
He should have done something. It wasn't a matter of even coming to me. They
Right.
should have done something, and they could have again had something in place and say, "Hey, look, you know what? Yeah, it's kind of hard to get to the facility, or it's expensive right now, but what can we do?" But to sit on your hands for 10 weeks,
Um,
yeah, you're one, 2 steps forward, 1 step back all year. And you're starting at zero
yeah.
all the time. It makes no sense to me for these athletes and parents who subscribe to the notion that, hey, I want my kid to get play after high school.
Right.
It,
Exactly.
it doesn't wash out, folks. It just doesn't, you know. So, that's kind of my 10 cents on that.
Right.
Um, really don't have much more to say on it, but
Yeah.
food for thought, you guys out there. Don't be afraid to have a conversation. It's better than sitting on your hands. It's better than not knowing it's bet, and probably it's definitely better than choosing the wrong thing. Again, I don't think there's any really bad training routines. And you can also look at our podcast, or listen to our podcast, Is Your Training Junk? We did that one, I
Yes.
think, earlier this year,
Yes.
but it's the application. And you always have to understand the athlete, understand the parameters of the program, and make sure they match accordingly. And that can be expensive and it could be pretty cheap. You know, it just depends on what you're choosing and again what your resources are. So it's not about going out and breaking the bank, eh, but it's about again finding the right thing.
Well said, Aaron. And on that note, that concludes our podcast today. This is Coach EJ, the brand.
Let's co-chair in the source. We'll see you.